Here's my cooler collection. I've got about 60 coolers in all. Yes, I had to get a storage unit for them. And of those, 50 of them are hard coolers, so most of what I've got to say today pertains to them. Of my 50 hard coolers, 29 were made in the USA. Compared to other outdoor products, that's a pretty good ratio. But that also makes sense to me given their size and weight. Freight costs must eat up a lot of your profits if you're in the cooler business, so shorter transportation distances have got to be a good thing. However, that still leaves a lot of coolers, especially premium rotomolded coolers, that are made overseas, predominantly in China and Thailand, with some coming out of Cambodia and the Philippines. Yeti much?
Gear up and get outside.
Many people applaud when an outdoor company manufactures gear in the USA, myself included. It's often assumed that coolers made in the USA are of higher quality and offer greater value somehow. Since I have so many dadgum coolers and have done extensive research, testing, and analysis on them, I figured I might be able to shed some light on whether American-made coolers really add any substantial value. So let's find out, starting with how you find out where coolers are made. Well, here's a clue. If finding the country of origin is like playing a game of Where's Waldo, chances are it's not made in the US. Companies love to advertise openly when a product is American-made, particularly when it comes to ice chests. On the contrary, I had to really dig through online FAQs, forums, and most of all, packaging from my own coolers to find out where these other ice chests were made. As far as companies go, there are really three camps. 100% made in the USA, 100% imported, a mix of domestic and imported products. The last group includes mostly bigger cooler companies like Yeti, Igloo, and Coleman, but also Frosted Frog, which imports their rotomolded coolers, but just started making some injection molded coolers in the US. Of my 50 hard coolers, all are designed and marketed for US customers, regardless of where they're made, and only 2 of them are from non-US companies. X-Spec is out of China, and Oyster Hell's from Norway, where they know a thing or two about ice. Speaking of, do American-made coolers have better ice retention? I have conducted 2 epic ice retention challenges with my fleet of coolers. Once in the sweltering heat of summer with temperatures soaring between 90 to 100 plus degrees, and once in milder, more idyllic 70-degree weather that's perfect for camping.
Let's see which one of these holds ice the best, shall we?
It wasn't an overly scientific process, but it realistically represented how we use coolers during real-world outdoor adventures. Here's how US-made coolers stack up against their foreign counterparts. Assuming mild weather conditions, the average American cooler ran out of ice after 10.4 days, whereas their globe-trotting cousins stretched it to 11.8 days. Uh-oh. But if I exclude the blow-molded budget models and just compare premium coolers, the US-made ones averaged 11.6 days and the imports 11.9. Better, I guess. However, the longest-lasting coolers in both ice challenges were dominated by American-made brands like Cabela's, Orion, Orca, Maluna, and Bison. China hasn't got us beat yet. America's still on top. But that's still pretty close, so call it a wash? At least we can confidently say US build quality is better, right? As it turns out, most of the cheap, low-quality grocery store coolers we're all familiar with from brands like Coleman and Igloo are made in the US, not overseas. It's mainly ultra-rugged, premium, rotomolded or injection-molded coolers that apparently have enough margin in them to import for sale here at high prices. Among top-tier coolers that we have ranked for build quality, they're made all over. There are some imports like the Coho and K2 that have a lower end feel and finish to them, but I'd say the same thing about the Cabela's and the Coleman Trailmate. My Trailmate literally has black Sharpie marker hiding some hairline cracks in the Igloo logo, and it's made in the USA. On the other hand, US-made coolers from Orca, Kong, Cordova, Grizzly, and Pelican are extremely durable and well-built with bear-resistant certifications to boot. But the same can be said for foreign-made coolers from Yeti, Engel, and Canyon. Other than the occasional lower quality component here and there on either side of the fence, I haven't seen any substantial deviation in quality between American or foreign-made coolers. Sorry guys, but I gotta say this one's a tie too. But are the features more American? Look, as it turns out, we Americans and our friendly Canadian neighbors to the north are basically the only people in the world that use, let alone obsess over coolers for recreational purposes. In Europe, coolers are basically for commercial fishermen and transporting live organs between medical facilities. The Australians get where we're coming from. In fact, they even invented a lot of these high-end coolers. And perhaps the Brits sympathize, but spending gobs of money on big heavy ice chests that don't fit inside a hatchback just isn't a thing outside North America to the scale it is here. In short, coolers are as American as apple pie. For the most part, they're designed by Americans, for Americans, even if they sometimes come with a made elsewhere label. Now, there are a lot of copycat Chinese-made coolers for sale on Amazon that have nothing original about them. And when they do, sometimes it gets a little weird, like the built-in compass in the X-Spec. Typically, though, an imported cooler doesn't misjudge the tastes of its American target market, like a Japanese edamame soybean KitKat might. It's more like a wayfaring Butterfinger being repatriated.
Nobody better lay a finger on my Butterfinger.
Now we gotta talk about price, even if you want to try and avoid it like you would a conversation about our broken healthcare system with that liberal uncle of yours. Compared to an icebox made in Asia, you probably expect American-made coolers to cost you an arm and a leg, sort of like that fancy organic gluten-free artisanal bread at the grocery store. Cost of wages, profit-hungry investors, that whole thing. But, surprise, surprise, it turns out they're more like that regular loaf of bread. Just as good, but without the extra zeros on your bill. The average price of my coolers is $249. My imported cooler's average price is $253, and my American-made average is $246. 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Your wallet can hardly tell the difference. Hats off to making American-made products economical here and to what I can only imagine as exorbitant shipping costs to get a container full of bulky 35-pound Yeti Tundra Halls shipped from the Philippines to Texas. Blowing smoke, polluting its way across the Pacific. How about them apples, Uncle Pete? But that's not the whole story. When we look at the cost per day of ice retention among my premium coolers, being the rotomolded, injection molded, and metal ones, the imports only cost $26.42 per day, while the domestics cost $29.18. While close, the imports may give you a little more bang for your buck after all. But what about their warranty and customer service? Among the coolers in my collection, 17 of them have a 5-year warranty, which is the most common. That seems to be the status quo for high-end coolers. Here's a breakdown of US versus foreign-made cooler warranties. 1/3 of my USA-made coolers have a lifetime warranty, whereas only 10% of the imported coolers do. So if that's important to you, you're more likely to get the best guarantee from American-made brands like Orca, Kong, or Pelican. Orion's US-made coolers have a respectable 10-year warranty, but so do Engel's imports. The worst warranty of any cooler in my collection is from that Chinese-made X-Spec. It's an excellent cooler, but the 30-day warranty is laughable. Overall, US-made coolers are likely to have a better warranty, though it's not a guarantee. And a 1-year warranty on a rotomolded cooler? Lame. Hear that, Arctic? You might think an imported cooler company provides terrible customer service, but the fact is most of these are American companies who just manufacture their stuff overseas. I have personally contacted the customer service department of 18 cooler companies anonymously with a random inquiry. I either sent an email or filled out a web form. Coleman, Arctic, Cabela's, Orion, X-Spec, Engel, and Cordova provided excellent responses within well under 24 hours. You can't send an email to Yeti, and I got zero response from American-made companies Rover and Pelican. So here we again have a wash. It has not been my experience that where a cooler is made has anything to do with the quality of customer service. So, similar ice retention, comparable build quality, features as all-American as mullets in baseball, and price differentials that can only arouse a bond analyst at the Federal Reserve. Is anyone convinced that American-made coolers are worth it yet? Well, Jeremy is the production manager at Cordova Coolers right here in Idaho, and here's what he has to say about that.
I think it's people living here, Meridian, Nampa, Caldwell, we get a good group of people coming through here. It's local, their money's coming into it and the money's staying here, making Idaho well known throughout outside of Idaho as well. As far as this market, it's like I said, the big coolers for hunters and fishers. Yeah. Idaho's great for that, and rafting, and we're a camping world, hunting world in Idaho, and everyone needs a cooler for that. And knowing that it's coming from here, their people are sweating their butts off making these coolers here, because you definitely do that. I think just that closeness and local part about it is what makes it good.
Yeah, and I think that's what it really comes down to: people and benefiting your own community. Buying USA-made coolers reduces your carbon footprint since the product doesn't have to travel so far. It increases the likelihood that the cooler makers have safe working conditions and better wages. And it definitely helps keep more money in your local economy. Whether or not that's worth it to you is entirely up to you. But don't be dissuaded from buying an imported cooler you like based on the fallacies of buying American made. They're not always higher quality, they don't always provide better customer service, and it doesn't keep all the money in the US. With global supply chains, many companies making coolers in the US surely import select components or even the machinery they use in manufacturing. And on the flip side, those manufacturing coolers overseas may be exporting components from the US to do so. In fact, Canyon Coolers sends some materials from the US to their factory in China to make their coolers. In this era of globalization, amazing coolers can come from anywhere in the world. There are certainly some exceptions to all this, with some noteworthy American-made standouts, but the blanket assumption that foreign-made coolers are subpar in quality or performance is objectively false. Seems like these coolers all cater to us ice-loving Americans anyway, since it appears that everyone else is somehow okay with a warm Coke. That is not okay. That is not okay. It's not okay. If you value domestically made products that have a greater positive economic impact here in the USA, there's good news when it comes to coolers. You have lots of options and you're not necessarily paying a premium like you might be with other outdoor gear. You don't really have to sacrifice anything for an American-made cooler. You're going to pay roughly the same price for either a high-end or a low-end model, regardless of the country of origin. If you want to see more with Jeremy and exactly how coolers are still made right here in the USA, go watch the whole factory tour next. Now gear up and get outside. Uh-oh. 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 Yeah, I don't know what I want to say. Uh-oh. I'm trying to see if I don't even know what I look like. That's dumb. All right, just pick one and go with it. Uh-oh.